Welcome to the Exponential English Podcast. This is a place to slow down, to breathe, and to learn English naturally. Have you ever felt tired because of your own mind? Not your body, not your job, not even other people, just your mind. Too many thoughts, too many memories, too many fears, too many questions. What if I made the wrong choice? What if I fail? Why did that happen to me? Why did I say that? Why did they leave? Why can't I just feel calm? This is the story of a young man named Marco. Marco was 24 years old. From the outside, he looked normal. He could smile, he could talk, he could go to work, he could sit with friends. But inside, his mind was never quiet. The moment he woke up, his thoughts began. When he brushed his teeth, he thought about mistakes from years ago. When he ate breakfast, he worried about what could go wrong later that day. When he walked outside, he compared himself to other people. When he lay in bed at night, his body was tired, but his mind kept moving. It was like living with a noisy crowd inside his head. One voice spoke about the past, another voice spoke about the future, another voice filled him with fear, another voice filled him with sadness. And the worst part was this. He thought this was normal. He thought this was just life. He thought peace was something for other people, for monks, for old wise people, for people with easy lives. But not for him. One evening, after another long day of stress and overthinking, Marco sat alone in his small apartment. The room was quiet, but his mind was loud. He looked at the floor and said softly, "I can't keep living like this." He did not say it with anger. He said it with exhaustion, real exhaustion, the kind that comes from carrying invisible weight for too long. A few days later, Marco visited a small bookstore near his office. He was not looking for anything special. He only wanted to walk around and escape his thoughts for a little while. An old woman stood behind the counter. She noticed his tired face. She asked, "Are you looking for a book?" Marco gave a weak smile and said, "I think I'm looking for peace." The old woman looked at him for a moment. Then she nodded slowly. She said, "A few hours from here, there is a quiet village in the hills. A wise old man lives there. He used to be a psychologist many years ago. Now he helps people in a different way." Marco almost laughed. It sounded like a story from a movie, but something in her voice felt sincere. So he asked, "Do people really go there?" She said, "Some do. Not all of them understand his lessons, but sometimes the lesson is simple enough for anyone who is ready." Marco thanked her. That night he thought about her words. At first his mind tried to reject the idea. This is silly. This won't help. You need something bigger. You need a perfect answer. But deep down, another part of him whispered, "Go." So the next morning, he packed a small bag and left the city. The bus ride was long. As the buildings disappeared, the air changed. The noise changed. The world began to feel slower. Marco looked out the window and saw fields, trees, and small roads. For a moment, he felt something strange. Not happiness, not joy. Just a small gap in the noise. A little space. When he arrived at the village, it was already afternoon. It was a simple place. Stone paths, old houses, a small market, children playing, birds in the distance. Nothing looked special. And yet everything felt calm. Marco asked a few people about the old man. They pointed toward a small house near the edge of the village. When Marco arrived, he saw a wooden chair outside, a garden with herbs, and an old man sitting in the shade. The man looked peaceful. Not in a dramatic way. not like a saint in a painting. He simply looked present, like he was fully there. Marco walked closer. The old man raised his eyes and smiled. "Welcome," he said. Marco stood silently for a moment. Then he said, "I came because I need help." The old man nodded. "With what?" Marco sat down slowly. "With my mind," he said. "It never stops. I think about everything. The past hurts me. The future scares me. Even when nothing bad is happening, I still feel restless. I want peace, but I don't know how to find it." The old man listened without interrupting. When Marco finished, the old man asked, "Do you believe peace exists?" Marco thought for a moment. Then he said, "For some people, maybe, but not for me." The old man smiled gently. "That is the first lie your mind has taught you." Marco looked down. The old man stood up and went inside his house. He returned carrying a clear glass filled all the way to the top with water. Not almost full, completely full. So full that the surface of the water seemed to rise above the edge. The old man placed it in Marco's hands. "Take this glass," he said, "and walk to the far edge of the village. Then come back here." Marco looked at the glass, then at the old man. "That's all?" The old man nodded. "But there is one rule. Do not spill a single drop." Marco almost protested. He had traveled all this way for advice, not for a strange game. But the old man's face remained calm. So Marco stood up carefully, holding the glass with both hands. The water trembled. He took one slow step, then another. The path through the village was not empty. People were talking. A dog barked nearby. A cart rolled over stones. Children laughed and ran past him. Someone called out to a neighbor. Music drifted from an open window. Marco noticed all of this, but only from far away. His eyes stayed on the glass. His hands stayed steady. His breathing slowed. Step by step, he walked through the village. At one corner, two men were arguing loudly. Marco heard their voices, but he did not turn his head. At the market, he smelled fresh bread and spices. He did not stop. A little girl ran close to him and nearly brushed his arm. His heart jumped, but he tightened his focus. The glass, the water, the next step, the glass, the water, the next step. He reached the edge of the village. Then he turned around. On the way back, the road felt even longer. His arms began to ache. His shoulders felt stiff. A drop of sweat moved down the side of his face. But still he kept walking. Slowly, carefully, one step, then another. When he finally returned to the house, the old man was waiting for him in the same chair. Marco stopped in front of him and let out a long breath. The old man looked at the glass. The water was still there. Not a single drop had spilled. Marco felt proud, but also confused. The old man asked, "Tell me, on your walk, did you notice the woman selling flowers near the square?" Marco blinked. "No." "Did you hear the song the boy was playing on the flute?" Marco shook his head. "No." "Did you see the red cloth hanging from the balcony near the well?" "No." The old man smiled. "Of course not." Marco frowned. "Because I was focused on the water." "Yes," the old man said. "Exactly." He leaned forward slightly. "You walked through the same village where people were speaking, laughing, shouting, selling, moving, and living. The world around you did not become silent. The village did not become empty. The noise did not disappear." He pointed to the glass, "But your attention was somewhere else." Marco looked at the water. The old man continued, "That is why you succeeded. You gave your full attention to what was in your hands in this moment with this step. Your mind did not have space to wander into yesterday or tomorrow. Marco said nothing. Something in him was beginning to understand. The old man spoke again, slowly. Most people believe peace comes when the world becomes quiet. They think, when my problems are gone, then I will rest. When people stop disappointing me, then I will feel calm. When the future becomes certain, then I will be okay. But peace does not begin in the outside world. He touched his chest. It begins here. Marco listened closely. The old man said, your thoughts about the past create sadness. Your thoughts about the future create fear. But the present moment, this moment, is often much smaller and simpler than the stories in your mind. He looked at Marco kindly. Right now, sitting here, breathing, listening, are you in danger? Marco looked around. The trees moved softly in the wind. The sunlight touched the ground. He heard birds. He heard his own breathing. Slowly he answered, no. The old man nodded. And yet your mind can make you suffer even in safety. That is why you must learn where to place your attention. Marco asked quietly, so I should ignore life? The old man smiled. No, not ignore life. Enter it fully. He pointed toward the path Marco had walked. When you held the glass, you were fully there. Not half in a memory, not half in imagination. Fully there. That is where peace lives. Marco's eyes grew wet, not because he was sad, because something true had touched him. The old man continued, peace is not something you chase. It is something you uncover when you stop chasing every thought. Marco whispered, but my thoughts are so strong. Yes, the old man said, thoughts can be strong, but they are not always true, and they do not always deserve your attention. He picked up a small leaf from the ground. Imagine sitting by a river. Leaves float on the water. One leaf says, you failed before. Another says, something bad will happen tomorrow. Another says, you are not enough. If you jump into the river and chase every leaf, you will drown in exhaustion. Then he opened his hand and let the leaf fall. But if you stay still and simply watch, the leaves pass. Marco sat very quietly. The old man said, your mind will still produce thoughts. That is what minds do. The goal is not to destroy thought. The goal is to stop obeying every thought. A long silence followed, but this silence did not feel uncomfortable. It felt warm, useful, alive. After some time, Marco asked, how do I begin? The old man answered, begin small. When you drink water, just drink water. When you walk, just walk. When you eat, just eat. When fear comes, return to what is here now. Your breath, your feet, your hands, the sounds around you, the life directly in front of you. He smiled again. Carry the glass. Marco stayed in the village until evening. He did not ask for more complicated wisdom. He did not need it. Before he left, he thanked the old man. The old man said only one final thing. Do not wait for a peaceful life to feel peace. Bring peace into the life you already have. On the bus ride home, Marco sat by the window again. The road was the same. The distance was the same. But something inside him had changed. When an anxious thought appeared, he noticed it. But this time he did not follow it. He felt the seat beneath him. He looked at the sky. He listened to the sound of the bus. He returned to the present, again and again. Not perfectly, but gently. In the weeks that followed, Marco still had difficult moments. He was still human. Some nights were still heavy, some mornings were still hard. But now he had something he did not have before, a way back. When his mind rushed into the past, he returned to his breath. When it raced into the future, he returned to his steps. When sadness and fear knocked on the door of his mind, he no longer invited them to stay for dinner. He noticed them. Then he returned to now. And little by little, the noise inside him became softer. Not because life became perfect, but because he stopped giving every thought his full attention. He learned that peace was never hiding in some distant place. It was not waiting in a perfect future. It was not locked behind success, money, or certainty. It had been quietly living inside him the whole time, covered only by noise, covered only by habit, covered only by the endless movement of an unfocused mind. So if your heart feels tired today, remember Marco. Remember the glass. The village was still noisy. People were still talking. Life was still happening. But peace became possible when his attention came home to the present moment. And maybe that is your lesson too. Not to control everything. Not to solve your whole life tonight. Not to silence the world. Just to return to this breath, to this step, to this moment. Because fear lives in imagined tomorrows. Sadness often lives in repeated yesterdays. But peace lives here, now, always waiting, always available, always closer than you think. So slow down. Breathe. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel the air enter your body. Look at what is in front of you. Carry the glass and come back to now. Before you go, remember this. You do not need to be perfect. You just need to keep going. Learning English is the same. Some days are easy, some days are slow, some days feel frustrating. That is normal. What matters is that you show up. You listen, you repeat, you try again. If you stay consistent, your English will grow. Slowly, naturally. This is exponential English. Small steps. Every day. Big change over time. Thank you for spending this time with me. Take a breath. And when you are ready, keep learning.